Oh, I talk all the time. You know,
How you line all this?
all you have to do is just turn the camera on and I'll start talking. And I can actually remember quite a bit of it, even diapers. I remember several things that happened to me in diapers. It's kind of like marijuana. Marijuana is called a forgetful drug because it makes you forget all your woes, whereas alcohol, that puts everything on the table and you start bitching constantly. You start tearing shit down and kicking the dog. There was a man who would come to visit us, and he would make us laugh, and we would have him over for parties. And I knew him only for 3 months, and then he went away to Hollywood, and he never came back, at least not to me. And 3 months after he was gone, I said to myself, my God, he was really interesting. I'm going to try to emulate him. So when I was about 32, 33 years old, I made a little decision that I was going to try to make total strangers laugh for the rest of my life. Total strangers. Go into town every day today. I go into even with the filming crew here today, I went out of my way to make you laugh because that man made me laugh. And I said, I'm going to try to emulate him. Although I could never be as good as him, Robin Williams helped to define who I am. So the humor is in the family and Robin, and now in your hearts. Robin Williams. You want me to tell you a Robin Williams story? Is that what you're asking? I'll tell you a good one. Here comes this woman holding this sonotube, and she gets to the middle of the room, and there are 4 feet coming out the ass end of it, and she kicks it up. It's all white, and the 4 feet stabilize it. And it's 14 feet tall. Up at the top is this big bunch of cotton and a white rope hanging down the side. And Robin Williams came to the all-white party as a 14-foot Tampax. I looked at all the piles of wood that I'd found, and I asked myself, well, what could you make with that? And I made my very first sculpture. It was of a Trojan horse, 17 feet tall. And that changed the course of my life. It, of course, the next day it hit the front page of the local newspaper, the IJ. The day after that it hit the UPI and was printed in newspapers all over the world. I have someplace in my memoirs a piece of paper from Egypt where the picture was most of it, and down and below that chicken scratch stuff that they can read, and then in English print, Dennis Patton, and then back to the chicken scratch. And I thought, oh my God, maybe I'm a sculptor. And that's the way it started. It's a series of circles made out of 1/4-inch rods. And one of my favorite parts of this piece, as an abstraction, is this outrigger. You know, somehow everything else seems to be flat and circular and going up and down, but this thing jetting out, it's the surprise of abstraction. The strong parts are these uprights. I'm going to take the nuts off, bolts out, and it'll be free. Now it's a line drawing in midair of the Golden Gate Bridge. I call this particular piece Bridge Tree because the center section, as we were looking at it from the side, has got these uprights. This is my dad's work. My dad was a pastel artist, charcoal, and he did nudes. Because of his work, I made my piece called Tamalpais, which is over at the Bon Air Shopping Center.
My dad loves to work with his hands, and growing up not being able to read or write, he drifted into jobs that he didn't need those skills. So carpentry and construction work were one of the first, and that's where he really gained knowledge of how to put things together, how to build things, which was like the foundation of his sculpting.
There's something about dyslexia that makes you not care. You know, you don't worry so much. So this being dyslexic is actually, no one really wants to be dyslexic, but I gotta tell you, it gave me my life, gave me my heart, gave me my insight. Being poor helped me to never let money become the goal. Being poor always made me more aware of what's going on around me, because I'm in the mix instead of above it or trying to get above it. So I'm really happy that I've been poor and dyslexic. Two things most people wouldn't want to touch.
He's had a very inquisitive mind, and he loves, and he's all self-taught. Like, he dropped out of school, he dropped out of high school, taught himself to read when he was 27 years old.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
He's dyslexic.
Dyslexic.
And that, I think, is what has brought him into his craft and art, because he, as he likes to say, he's had to find the backdoor entrance on everything in life because of the way his mind works, and the obstacles with standardized school testing and stuff. He had to figure things out and do it on his own.
So I would like you to see this, you know, as a cube you've never seen before. But try standing on that little white tile and looking at that thing right now.
Okay. Oh.
So what looked to be a pure abstraction is now
Yeah. Identifiable.
something recognizable.
Yeah, wonderful.
But within that same framework of cubism, come over here, there's yet another view. Stand on that white tile and look in.
Oh.
So there are two completely separate images within the same airspace.
Clever.
The first time I showed this piece was at Robert Mondavi's winery up in Northern California. And I had many of them out, maybe 10 of these abstract pieces out. And along came this tour of the winery, and there were about 20 people in the tour, and one of them in the tour said, "Oh, look at that shit. More junk, more abstraction." And I said to him, "Say, man, stand over here on that little white tile and look at it." And he did. And his eyes lit up, and he said, "Sue, Sue," and he's calling to his wife, "Come here, look at this." And then he looked down on the ground, and he was looking for other X's to stand on. And he would just go to an X and look up, because he thought abstraction was ugly because it was never understood or understandable. And because of people like him, I made sculptures that look like abstractions, but in fact have recognizable forms. Now that you know what it is, check out all this color and stuff that is not recognizable. Watch it change as you go from the green side to the red side. You can even go up and down.
Yeah.
And look at this damn cube from every angle. This is one of the best pieces I have ever seen by any artist, ever. It's that good. And it's that simple. It's naivete right in front of you, kissing you on the mouth.
Wonderful.
The first opportunity that I realized that I was going to have an interesting life was when I was 19. I went to Hawaii to visit a friend for 2 weeks. I stayed for 7 months. And within a week and a half, I was dropping in on overhead waves at North Shore. I mean, deadly waves, you know, could kill you. But I knew my body. I knew how to dance. I was an incredibly strong bicyclist in those days. And so when I got into the sport of surfing, I picked it up almost immediately. My friends would say, never met anyone who learned to surf as quickly as you, but within 2 weeks I was dropping in at sunset. And that was the beginning of a life that no one told me about. Elise, I know that I got excited over showing you the cube thing, but there's another one I want you to look at, and it's this one right here. So what I think is going to be interesting is for you to realize that these pads actually aren't just pure abstraction. They actually create something that's recognizable, but from the angle you're at, it's not noticeable. And put it in the foreground and left the subject matter out and call it the seated nude. So in the midst of that debris, seen through this little peephole over here,
Okay.
you will see, get out of the way, boys, is
Oh my gosh. That is fantastic. Oh, yes.
what you're looking at is there's only one of those on the entire surface of the planet, and it's my pleasure to show it to you. Now that you know that it is, and again, just like the cubistic one here on my right, now that you know what it is, then it's important to try to appreciate it from all the angles that you can appreciate it as an abstraction. You know what's fun about building it is I needed to be at the peephole at all times to be able to make that.
Yes. Yes.
But I couldn't go back and forth and keep track of what I was doing. So what I did was I worked right next to the sculpture with my hands to place the pads or cut things. And halfway between the sculpture and the peephole, I put a mirror. So I could always be this distance because of the mirror. So that was made with a mirror trick.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked beautifully.
3-story split level treehouse. What a great treehouse.
For how much you've done, I would think you were 110 years old.
Physically, I feel it. Now this one down here is of 8 people running with luggage in Iowa at an airport. It's 17 feet tall and 40 feet wide, and it's 2 cantilevered pieces. They do not touch in the middle. I am in this photograph. They took me out. They what's it called? They photoshopped me out. And this particular photograph is now on display with 25 other photographs as to what public art looks like in America. It's a permanent display at the Smithsonian. My work is in the Smithsonian as a photograph. That I did not expect.
Absolutely amazing.
Let's get the hell out of this room.
I would describe Dennis as a true legacy of making art abstract and real.
I can see space, but I can take something as small as this, say, and scale it up to something that's 40 feet tall and not lose the magic. Whereas a lot of people can't, a lot of artists can't do that. They can make something small out of rock or clay or something. But if you ask them to make it as tall as this little tree on my right here, it'll look like shit by the time they're done.
Yeah. He's big.
I was 5 years old when my dad installed Sir Francis Drake on the San Francisco Bay, and it blew me away to see this 30-foot tall monumental sculpture standing on its own, all made by the two hands of my dad.
You are what you art. The more you know about art, the better you can handle the world. It really helps when shit hits the fan. If you know how artists have been trying to help us throughout history. I mean, the most undersung people I've ever run across, worldwide, throughout all of history, were the artists who were just trying to give us some love, some passion, some insight, some new way of seeing. Amazing. Well, I got to be lucky enough to be one of those teachers, one of those inspirers.